introduce myself because I'm sure lots of you here with things to ask Gillian and Claudia, but I'd just like to say that it's just a wonderful opportunity to see it on the big screen like this after all this time, because it's a very special film, and the Pioneering Women program's just been a great initiative of MIFF's. Gillian, I know you've got a great story about how this almost wasn't Lily's story, that it could have been a very different story. And I'd just like to hear that from you again, because it's fascinating.
Sure, I'm sorry I'm such a big sook. I hope somebody else cried, but Claudia and I they're both so moving, such wonderful performances, and they all won AFI Actor Awards and Houston Film Festival, the whole three of them, and Judy won the New York Critics Award that year for the Best Actress of the Year in the world. So I feel very proud when I see them again, and it's so good to see it on the big screen. It reminds you how important it is to see things, not just as we were watching now on our large TVs. But yeah, so the story is this. When I developed the screenplay, wonderful screenplay, beautiful, beautiful dialogue, and with Laura Jones, who also later on did Oscar and Lucinda for me, and she did Portrait of a Lady for Jane, and she did Angela's Ashes, and she's one of the world's most wonderful screenwriters, and she's been texting me when I sneaked out for a little while, and she was like, how's it going? And I wish I was there, and she sends her love to you. And so Laura and Sandra and I decided to develop, we'd worked together trying to get a really big Australian project up that Pat Lovell was going to produce, and it was too expensive, it never got made. Oh, by the way, Tony Janane is here somewhere, our executive. There he is. So, yes, Tony, sorry, welcome and thank you. We can't make these films without people like Tony, and Tony with Hemdale financed the film in the year of the 10BA. Anyhow, we developed the film as a story about a surfer called John, because as I told you earlier, I'd always wanted to set something, one, in a caravan park, two, in something to do with the surfing culture. And then I also found this story about, they just opened up the adoption laws in Australia, so you could actually search for your possible parent. And I read an article about someone in their 60s who found their mother who was in her 80s, and it really affected me. I thought how interesting it is that the need to know who your real parent, particularly your mother, is such a deep primal thing. And it was really that premise that started the whole story. And Laura went off and wrote the whole original tale. We raised the money. We started casting with Liz Mulliner, looking for 30-something leading men to play John the surfer. And that very night that we started casting, I happened to go to see an Australian film. It was actually Wrong World, starring Joe Kennedy, who's in Starstruck, and she was very good in the film, won the Berlin Film Festival Best Actress Award, on the side. But on the way home, I was feeling really depressed, and I said to my partner, John, it's almost the same story, because it's about an alienated, drifting man who, through his relationship with a young girl, and through her just natural intelligence, that his life changes, and he sees a lot about his own self and his own faults. And John said, well, why don't you change it to a woman? And I said, well, everyone expects, because it's a woman writer, woman producer, and a woman director, that we're going to do a film about a woman. So I particularly want to do something that shows I don't just have to do films about women. And then after I said that, I thought, actually, that's quite a good idea. So I rang Sandra Levy, this is like 11 o'clock at night, and I said, what if we change the main character of John to a woman who's a drifter somehow? And she said, yeah, if Laura the writer is up for that, meaning that Laura could change the script in 5 weeks before we started real pre-production. So I thought about it overnight. I rang Laura first thing in the morning. She went, bless her, yeah, sure, I can change it to a woman if you want. So we go into the next casting session, and I say to Liz, well, thanks for all the lists of all the men, Brian Brown I suppose was on it. And so sorry, Brian didn't get the part. But we're now making it a 30-something woman. And he's just not blinking, just goes, okay, fine. Well, that's the top four. They're the best actresses in Australia, and Judy Davis. And she said, and if you want Judy, you have to decide by tonight, because she's been offered a huge role at the National Theatre or something in London, and she's got to decide by tonight. We went, oh, okay. Yeah, well, we do want her. So Laura and I went hand in hand to Judy's. Obviously, I know Judy because she started my first film, My Brilliant Career. And we're friends, but we have to go and say, so here's a script. There's a character here called John. We want you to play it, but we're going to rewrite it for you. So what do you want to play? Do you want to play a middle-class woman, a working-class woman? And she was like, well, actually, I quite like to play a middle-class. So I'm like sort of closer to myself. We're okay. So we walk away and go, and we're like, we'll come up with some idea about how you're a drifter. And then I remembered that Judy, after she graduated from high school in Western Australia, had joined a band, like a really bad backup band, and she'd actually toured Asia. And I knew she could sing as well. And I said, what if we make you a backup singer in a band? And in the end, we came up with the idea of the Elvis band. We thought, well, that's a way that you could be doing the country RSLs. So that's how John became Lily and Judy became our star. But we always had to find a young girl who could surf. And when we met Claudia, she couldn't surf. I'll just tell you the quick story about Christine. I'm talking about Judy, not about wonderful Claudia's here. So Claudia was the third person in to the casting session because she actually had a track record. She'd already starred in a film, Molly the dog. So of course she had, some reputation, and she knew what it was like to be on a film set because she'd done it when she was 10. And but at that point I thought, oh no, I've really got to find a girl that can surf. So I had casting agents scouring North Coast schools, and they saw hundreds and hundreds of girls. So Claudia wouldn't have told Claudia that when she was 10, that'd be too overwhelming. When she was, how old were you? 14. We didn't tell her that then. And then I just kept thinking about how amazing Claudia was at her first audition. But it wasn't just that she had a natural talent, and it wasn't just, great that she'd already been on a film set, but what she had was this inner life, this inner world, which was so right for our character. And there was just something about her that was slightly haunting. She was actually a very, very happy girl in real life, but she had sort of an inner sadness that worked so well. And now that I think about Claudia and how she's grown up so wonderfully, and how she's now not only an incredible actress, but an amazing, she's been a director, and she's been a producer, and she's produced some of my very, very favorite shows. I think it was an inner intelligence. I think she's just so smart. So it wasn't just that she was gifted, but she's just incredible. So that's it.
Now, I think we haven't got Claudia for much longer. I think you've got to rush off pretty soon, I gather. So I'm going to turn the mic over to the audience. But can I just say, we'll have Claudia questions first, because I think Gillian can stay a little bit longer. Yeah. So with the Claudia, I have Claudia questions, of course, but I'd like you to, if you have any, to have the opportunity to speak. So put your hand up. Yep, there, please.
Hi, sorry, I put my hand up before you said Claudia questions first. Can't hear you?
That's okay.
Oh, okay. Look, it's a bit of a general question, I guess, but I'm here with my childhood friend, and we grew up watching this film. We had a VHS tape of it and watched it on loop with each of our families, probably at least once a week for many, many years. Like, we were obsessed with this movie. And seeing it on the big screen today has just been the most moving, amazing kind of thing, because we haven't seen it since we were kids. One of the things that struck me is the three women leads in it, and so it's really interesting hearing that story. But the thing that I really am curious about is watching it as an adult. It's clearly a film for adults. it strikes me as really interesting that we loved it so much as quite small, quite young children. And when you were making the film, and Claudia, when you were acting in the film at that age, did you have any sense that it might, or that it did, have such a profound impact on some of us when we were kids ourselves?
Look, I had absolutely no objectivity about the project whatsoever. I was totally immersed, and that was the world that Gillian created. I mean, just watching what I saw of it the last 15 minutes just then, I would never have been able to appreciate how extraordinary Gillian is as a director, and all those beautiful transitions and the colours and the mood. It's just an extraordinary story that she's told, and with such a deft hand. And I was just in love with Judy Davis, really. I was head over heels in love with Judy Davis. That really was all that was going on in my life. I didn't know I was in a film. I didn't notice Gillian was even there. Gillian was pulling all the strings and setting the scene, but I just loved Judy Davis. And anything she said, she was so funny, she just was so smart, she was so engaging. I just couldn't believe I was in her company. And so then something else happened, a film was made apparently. So I have no idea. I certainly wasn't going, I wonder if this is going to appeal to children or adults, or what is this film saying? No, nothing.
But I think the thing that it's funny because actually when I was watching the beginning with the publicist, her little girl, who was only 4, started watching, and it was because there was a young girl in it. And I remember I've never forced my films on my daughters, but I did use it once as a babysitting thing. There was no DVD around, and they were about 10 or maybe like 8 and 10, and I did the same thing. I put it on, and they were mesmerised. And it was really because they saw a young Australian girl, so that's what they were relating to. And yeah, there haven't been that many films. We all need to think about how important it is. But it wasn't made as a children's film. But I hope neither of you have been damaged or watching that. Enriched, oh good, yeah. But when Claudia said that thing about loving Judy, I can still see that on her face. It was a really hard thing to pull off that final scene at the self-service station at the end, and how are we going to have them sort of happy without sort of feeling corny? And they just were loving each other, and it was completely real. But I've got to say, Judy said to me at the beginning, she said, and we did really try to shoot it as much as possible in story order to help like Claudia sort of go with the flow of the story, and we're helped because it was all in the one location. That so we weren't traveling to different places where you have to just shoot. Well, whatever happened here, we have to shoot now. But Judy said, "Do you think at the beginning when we don't know each other that I actually should keep away from Claudia, so she actually has a natural sort of fear of me?" And I said, that's quite a good idea. So we did that Judy was quite distant and didn't talk to Claudia much, at a break or anything, or even in rehearsals. She just did the scenes and sort of was a bit, actually pretty scary, because she was quite scary, Judy. She scared most of the crew. She had a son, of course, in tears once. And then as we started shooting the scenes where Claudia gets to know her, Judy purposely started getting to know Claudia off camera. And they did both adore each other. It wasn't false at all from Judy. She kept in contact with Claudia for years after we made the film. They both, it was true. And it's so great for a director that you've got that truth to capture.
Yeah, that scene where she purposely ignores you for that feeling that you should is you can just really feel that on how heartbreaking that would have been for that character. Have we got another Claudia question?
I don't mind. I can't.
Oh, okay. No, you don't mind saying that. Okay, all right. We'll just stand here then.
Claudia, how much of his character was brought from the screenplay, and how much did you personally bring? Does any of this relate to your own upbringing? Because I know you have a stepfather, is that correct?
Yes, yes, yeah.
Yeah, so did that, because it seemed there was such authenticity from both yourself and Judy Davis. I'm just wondering how much of that you might have brought from your own life and how much of it was directed to you.
Look, I think I certainly had, my family dynamic was incredibly complex. So I think that there's a degree of sensitivity and empathy, I think, that I would have just naturally brought to the story. But no, literally, there's no similarities. Just a kind of a state. Yeah.
I think we can get anyone I can ask. Oh, I'm so sorry. I
We're
thought we
going to
could.
wind up. Okay,
We've got to
any
wind
quick
up. I
question
do
before we
apologise.
all go
One
on?
last.
There's one man here.
Julie,
Go.
I haven't seen it before and it's wonderful, but I kept thinking in the last like 20 or 30 minutes, oh my God, the mother's just going to take off. And that's going to be it, and it's going to be so bleak. And then, you know, that almost happened in the end. She got the car and did you ever seriously consider making it like tragic?
Okay, so I'll just quickly tell this because the other people are coming in. So when we didn't know how, Laura really it was great. She went away to write this story. We didn't know how it was going to end. And the olden days, because you weren't typing on a computer, so she typed her script and then her film typist typed it up. So the first person to read the script was actually the typist. And we heard from the typist that when she got to that scene, she went, "Oh no, don't you do that." And it was such a great reaction. My challenge the whole time was, I hope one day when an audience see it, I can carry that off. That very thing that first audience, that was the typist, read on the page. That was like, oh God, you know, I hope that somehow when I turn this into a film that people will have the same reaction. So I hope you did.
I think we all did. Thanks so much.